And we're alive. I know that the thing with people saying we're live all the time. And I did that for a while. I was thinking, well, of course I'm live. I'm filming this thing. I did it because I'm alive. So I guess I decided to say, instead of being saying I'm live, I'm going to say I'm alive from now on because I think it's more pertinent. Don't mind the hair. I look like crap. Yes, I know. This is just me recording an impromptu video because the youngster, because anyone younger than me is definitely a youngster, is out with his new friend and doing some errands. So he's away from the room now, so I got the basement. Hooray for me! And of course, Bugs is enthusiastic as always. All right, so why am I here? Okay, well, why are we? The existential question: why are we all here? Well, I don't know what the answer to that question is, but I'll attempt to answer a question that's probably a little bit more fundamental to me, at least right now. It's a special video. This is not going to be part of the series. The series has been recording. After recording the first episode, I'm going to be putting it out soon on YouTube, and of course on Rumble and a few other places, locals, a couple of the communities I'm trying to get involved with. Oh, sorry. Another thing, another project of mine, the word trying. How many of you out there use the word trying regularly in a sense when it comes to anyone asking you to do a favor for something? You go, hey Joe, can you go move that book, please? I'll try to do that whenever I can. Or derivative. Try, trying, whatever, tried, etc., etc. How many else you use that word quite religiously on a regular basis and then turn around and somebody says, okay, oh Joe, why didn't you do that thing you asked about? I thought you were going to do that thing. Well, I tried to, and this came up and that came up. I had this wedding to go to, this bar mitzvah, and my wife, my spontaneous blew up, etc., whatever excuses came up. And so I tried, and you walk away, you go, okay. And then nobody asks you ever again for anything. Why? Because you're trying too hard. It's kind of funny when you think of when you say it, that you're trying too hard. No, you're not trying hard enough. That's the problem. Your attempts are failing, and so is your need to say try. So one of my sort of mythos or some of my mantras in life is to call myself out when I do things, including say certain words and phrases or act certain attitudes or do certain behaviors. Call myself out, because if I don't call myself out, and if you don't call yourself out for anything you know that is bad for you in some way, whether it be health-wise, emotionally, um, morally, whatever the thing is, if you don't call yourself out when you see yourself crossing that line to make an attempt to make that behavior or exhibit some sort of proclivity to do something that specifically does have very weak intent, like the word try does, call yourself out on it. I will attempt to be a better person. How's about that? How's about how we all attempt to be better people? Let's just start there and work our way up. Okay, now that I've got that little piece of business out of the way, let's get down to what it was I really wanted to come out here for. Well, I want to come here. Here's the thing. Everybody, this is I have this thing now that I have someone beside me, my lovely fiance, or anyone else that I care about. I put my arms around because I care about them, and it's just a natural habit. Anyway, I'm going to put a hand here instead. No, I'm putting Bugs' leg because Bugs' leg is where I would put on my fiance's leg. Since Bugs is here, I'm not gay, I'm not into rabbits, I'm not into male rabbits. I just put it here because of us. I'll put my arm on the chair. How about that? Okay. I don't want to rest somebody. I just need to now. Yes, because we all need connection. We all need to be connected to somebody. Most of us acknowledge it. Some of us deny it because we don't want to admit to that. Because it means that we need other people and we need to be social. And we want to deny that because we have to say, oh, I don't need anybody. I don't need anybody. I'm my own person. I'm my own boss. I'm in control of my own life, and I don't need anybody. Well, those people are lying to you and themselves, mostly themselves. Okay, but what I wanted to really talk about is the need to choices. We're all presented with choices all day long. Every choice, whether we get up in bed or not, whether we go to work or not, whether we eat or not, whether we do anything, or not, whether we eat that sandwich or we eat that sandwich, we drink this sugary soda or we drink this lovely bottle of water. We all present with choices. Some choices are about aversion risk, and some choices are reduction of risk. And what do I mean by that? What does it really mean to avert or avoid risk? Or mitigate risk? What do those things mean? Okay, for example, I'll give you an example of my personal life right now, something that we're going through right now that really sort of hits the stone. Most of us in life have aspirations to do something grandiose in our life. In this case, most of us have to own our own home. home ownership is definitely a noble aspiration. How many of us actually get to own that home? Most of us don't. For various reasons, whether it's too expensive, too far away, doesn't fit our lifestyle, we have other priorities more important than that, we don't want to be tied down to one place, etc. The excuses go on and on, the reasons go on and on. But for most of us that want to aspire to eventually own our own place, whether it be an apartment building, a house, a piece of land, a gravesite, which is ultimately a little piece of land most of us end up owning anyway. It's the only piece of land that most of us get to own that we get to keep, because the fact is the state can't take the ground away from us. They can't tax us on it anymore because we're dead. So that's the only piece of ground they cannot necessarily take away from us. At least they don't think they can. Although they're making it easier and easier for more of us to occupy the state. They're basically concentrating us into smaller areas when we're alive and when we're dead even. A cremation was an attempt to concentrate the bodies of humans into a smaller area so they don't take as much land. And in a lot of places where land was very expensive and dear, it was a thing that made sense. But from a point of view of philosophical, it took a long time to sell a culture whose traditions were based on burial, on the concept we still bury you, but we're just not burying all of you. We're getting rid of the parts that we don't need. The parts that are eventually going to go away anyway, so we can make room for more of you. And the other place you're hearing those terms right now is listen to our Prime Minister, Prime Minister Trudeau, and a lot of people like him, saying we want to build more homes, but only if we can put them in the same area. In other words, we want to put more homes and concentrate. Now, there's another famous person that used the word concentrate. We all know who he is. Do we have to even say it? The irony of that whole statement right there, to concentrate, they don't use the word concentrate, of course, because concentrate has a lot of bad baggage with it, but they say, they have all kinds of other words. I can't remember the word Trudeau used. He used a word that basically meant concentrate. And what the instance when he wants to put more people, densify, densification. That's it. Not concentration, densification. Because it doesn't sound as bad as concentration, because the word concentration has a lot of negative baggage. Thanks Adolf for that one, and his friends. Okay, so densification, that's the word they're using. They want to densify us into a smaller area. They want to, meanwhile, on the big estates that many of these rich people own, yes, big estates, because they won't concentrate themselves. Most of them, if they do concentrate themselves, don't really concentrate themselves because they'll get a big, huge pen of suite that can hold 16 people for one person in the space. A place that holds 16 people for one in the city. So that's their version of concentrate, because instead of having 20 acres of land, they have 1 acre of land now instead of 20, but they still have way too much for one person. Way too much that one person normally would have in that same city could never ever have that much space just for themselves per person. But they have it, and they figure that's a sacrifice because that's the thing that you live in a city that's concentrated. Or, in this case, densified. Of course, that's the word, densified, okay? So, we're all being forced to densify the cities so we can make room for the rich people so they can have more golf courses. And, of course, that's what they want it for, but they're going to tell you it's something else. They're going to tell you, oh, we're trying to make it climate change. We're trying to reduce climate change by reducing the number of people in one area, make them more densified, so we can use less energy, less gas, etc. But meanwhile, while they're doing that to you, they're still living the lives, flying their jet planes all over the world, doing the lifestyles they live, living the big mansion, etc., etc. Why they're telling you that you're the problem and they're not? Why do they get to be the special ones, the ones that don't have to follow the rules that they set for everyone else? Especially during COVID time, many of them got caught breaking those very rules that they claimed that they needed to do in order to save the world. I'm not talking about the mask, whether you believe in or disagree with the masks. That's perfect. That's another argument there. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about whether you took the COVID-19 shots out. Some people did, some people didn't. I'm talking about the general rules of conduct that they claimed would mitigate the actual spread of this virus, irrespective of what other behaviors you did for or against them. They did everything that they told us not to do. Why? Because they had gotten us out of the way by putting us in our homes, densifying us in our homes for long periods of time, preventing us from doing all the things that we naturally human beings do, which is exercise, interact with each other, socialize, be people out there. They crammed us into little cubicles while they got to do all the things they want because nobody was watching. And the ones that were watching, the few people did watch, they paid them off, gave them a tip, gave them a bunch of money, said, here, go buy yourself a fur coat, go do this for yourself because, you know, we want to still live the life we live and we don't care about the rest of the people. we're going to tell them, don't ever tell. And of course, some of them were brave enough to turn around and post it. The Nancy Pelosi video, or Nancy Pelosi was revealing a hair salon during in California, the place that was one of the most intensely COVID adverse places, where they had the most draconian restrictions in the world. Not the most, but one of the most. And then he was found doing all the things that she told everyone else not to do. And she got caught, so she had to make excuses. Oh, this or that or whatever. Bullshit. Bullshit on that. If you make rules like that, you need to follow the same rules. Matter of fact, I think for anyone that has any authority at all, and this is a policy I've had for a while, an idea of pretext I've had for a long time, anyone that creates rules, any person in authority, should be held doubly accountable to the laws that they've created when they're caught. Think about that one. What if a police officer had to do 20 years for a crime instead of 10 that would be done by any other civilian? 20 years. Or a lawyer. Or anyone that's of that type of ilk that is aware of the laws more so because they're in the business of aware of the laws, or enforces the laws, or makes the laws. The people that are aware, enforce, and create. Those three people, the three pillars of law and order, should be forced to do a harder sentence, up to twice the time, for the same crime if convicted as anyone else. Don't you think that might be a deterrent? Don't you think that might make them take the laws that they make everyone else follow more seriously? If you're going to create a law, if you don't have to enter into the consequences of the law, much less feel a larger consequence for responsibility because you know the law, if you don't do the crime, you won't do the time. Whether you double, triple, quadruple. It's like carbon taxes. They keep quadrupling, thinking that if you double a tax, it's going to be deterrent from doing it. Well, the problem is doubling and tripling in law aspects doesn't deter anyone from doing anything if they're going to do it anyway. Even for these laws, for example. These people will, even if you double triple laws, will probably break the laws, just as you mentioned, because they figure that they still have the means to prevent themselves from having the consequences of those laws. So not only do we have to deter someone by maybe increasing the consequences in some case, if that's what effective deterrent might be, we have to make it so that they're not the ones that get to choose who gets judged for it. Why would you want to have someone that is on the inside loop of things, judging other people on the inside loop of things for the conduct of a crime, when we don't have that ability for ourselves? We don't get to have that inside track, having someone help us defend ourselves from a crime. Justice is not equal, because the fact is, anyone that has an inside track, or anyone that's in the inside track to a law, doesn't have to receive justice, no matter how severe the punishment is, no matter how much you double, triple, quadruple the punishment, or whatever. But the people on the outside that don't have the power of getting around, or skirting, or mitigating these very, very draconian measures, either whether it's laws, whether it's taxes, whether it's anything like that, feel the most consequences. And the people that make it never seem to experience the consequences of the laws and punishments they put upon others. They never do. And they keep saying we're all in this together. Bullshit. They're not in together. They're not. It's a lie. It's the biggest lie. And this is a lie that we start talking about more, and start holding people, and find ways to hold these people just accountable so they can understand the consequences actually should be felt equally by everyone, including the people that make the laws. And if they did, probably equally, maybe they would see that certain laws just don't work. They are not deterrents, because it doesn't deter them if under the same consequence. How you expect it to deter anyone else? You need to find better and better deterrents, or better ways of mitigating these types of things from happening, discouraging these types of behaviors, not giving them reason to encourage them by making them forbidden. Like drug laws. I mean, you put drugs in and tell them you can't drink it. It's how do you remember kids? You tell them not to do something. What's the first thing they do? They do it anyway because they want to know what it is that's so hard, what's so bad, if they did it. Why is it you're preventing them from enjoying doing that? Because in their brain, it's enjoyment. You're denying them something. You're denying something they think you're doing because, like smoking. You say, "Oh, I can't smoke." Well, the kid says, "You're denying me. You're doing it, so it must be something really great. Why are you denying me the privilege of being able to enjoy the same thing you're enjoying?" That's because we know in our hearts it's really not that good. And in actual fact, we're attempting to prevent them from. Let's think the word "trying" again pops up. Sorry about that. It keeps coming. I have to work on it. We attempt to deny them that same pleasure, because obviously it's good for us. Stop doing things and telling others to do something when you're clearly doing it anyway, and flaunting it in front of them, and they don't understand the context of why it's bad, just like you understand the context of why you doing it in front of them is bad in the first place, and then telling them not to do it. The mixed messages and contradictory things. Everyone does it, including politicians. And that's something we should work on. If you're going to set up a law, Be the example. Be the better person. Be the one that said, if you want to think this is something you should be doing, it means you should be doing it too, and you should be setting an example. And that goes for politicians, anyone. But getting back to my original track, we'll talk about impulses and indulgences. We all want things, we all need things, and we all decide whether things like, for example, a home, or a car, or whatever else it is. And there are two choices in life when it comes to anything we want or need that is a desire that we want to attain, some aspirational goal. Especially if we already have it. Like, I'll give an example of our situation, which probably puts it in context for me better and helps me explain it better. My fiancée is working very well, and she's making good money. I'm not. I'm in a position right now that I'm a disabled person trying to recover, become a productive person inside. This is why I'm here. Not just to talk to you, but to give myself purpose again. Whether it be monetary purpose or just purpose in general. Just to make me feel like that you're getting, as a society, value for the money for me. Whether you're paying me directly or you're paying me indirectly, that I'm providing some sort of value to my community, and I'm becoming valuable, and I give value for myself, because value feeds value. It's the example. It's the whole purpose of the example thing. I mean, if you give someone money for nothing and don't expect anything from that money, chances are 9 times out of 10 you will get nothing back. And then you complain about why you're giving all this money. These people are doing nothing for society. Well, duh. That is the whole problem there. You are the one that's feeding the system by giving people money without any expectations of some contribution somehow, in some way that can still be productive, to give them a sense of purpose as well as get some value back for the money you've given. So that society reciprocates and does so, they get something useful gets done, some useful work gets done out of it. Now, eventually, of course, obviously, if a person gets so old that they can't do anymore, they may have diminished value, and we have ways of rewarding people for their lifetime of service by giving them some sort of break from that, because they had value at one point in time. Sorry, but that's just somebody wanting money from me. Anyway, talking about people with values. Diminished value, okay? So it means ultimately sometime in time we're all going to have diminished value. So ultimately we have to put in our value wherever we can, as much as we can, to give ourselves meaning, gives us purpose, and also gives the society a reason to reward us for existing. Because that's our purpose. Without purpose, people will die lonely and die young. The people with purpose tend to live longer because they drive themselves to live as long as they can, and then when the body finally gives out, it's because they ran out of purpose. It's not because they ran out of purpose, they just ran out of life. Don't run out of purpose in life, run out of life. You'll run out of life eventually, we all do, but wouldn't you rather be doing it with some purpose? Now, this is again another side. It's obviously not part of the original discussion. It's an side. It's a tangent. You're going to find, when listening to me a lot of times, I don't come in here with a script. I come in with an idea. I come in with a premise. I come in with some sort of thing I want to talk about. And because I talk about them, and it comes off the heart, and I think about things all the time, there's always going to be tangents. So anyone that follows me and knows me, anyone that's been with me, knows that tangents are a very important part of my life, because there's always another ideas coming up that I have to express. And if I get them out right away, then at least they're recorded for posterity, so at least somebody has heard the message and has learned something from it. So, and of course, getting back, the whole thing is she has a fair bit of money, and she basically bought her first vehicle, a Escape. And it was because it was interesting to me, because she just came out of a situation where she had to come in a very bad relationship with some guy that didn't care about her financial state. He was in bad financial state, so he allowed her to basically finance him to put him back on his feet again with her debt, create debt on her behalf. And because of that debt, he walked away, and then she walked away, there was nothing left except the debt. She got to a point where she was no longer able to pay it. Maybe at some point in time he was contributing to it. I don't know. I don't know the circumstances. She never talked about the whole thing with me. But maybe he was paying, contributing in some way, maybe helping with bills or something like that, whatever, which allowed her to pay more money towards debt, paid for food or whatever. So what ended up happening, she couldn't afford it. So obviously it got to a point eventually she decided I couldn't put my hands up there. She went to credit counseling, like many of us end up doing, that we get to that. Most of us do, not me, but most of us do, because that's the situation. Because you're working, but you're not working, you just don't have enough. And say, listen, I need help. I can pay this. I can't pay this right away. I can't pay this whole debt. I got two choices. Either I can declare personal bankruptcy, or actually, we have three choices. You can keep paying as much as you can and hope that eventually you catch up, which can be impossible. If you got a credit card, 9 times out of 10, if you got a credit card, it's virtually going to be impossible to pay it off ever. You will die with that debt. Most of us will. You can do that and keep paying as much as you can, hope that you can keep up and eventually make more and eventually pay yourself out of debt. That's the goal. That's my aspiration. 2, you can declare personal bankruptcy, of course, which basically means I'm throwing my hands, I'm giving up. I'm going to pay a fee to a trustee for a period of time, either a year or 2 years, The creditors will get a proceeds of whatever is in that thing that's designated for credit repayment. Of course, the creditors that have the highest priority get their money first, and the rest get down to the bottom, to the lowest priority creditors. And of course, the lowest priority creditors basically end up sucking behind. You know what? I won't say the word, but you know what I'm going with this. And the third one is credit counseling as a consolidation, where each of the creditors agrees that they're going to take a little less money over a period of time, and then they're going to agree once this contract is paid off at the right period of time, it's 2 or 3 years typically. Once this contract is paid, sometimes even less than that, 1 year, depending on how accelerated you want to do it. Once you pay off the obligations of this contract, whether within the 2-year period, you're no longer obligated to ever pay them back ever again. You're absolved from the obligations of debt. But the trade-off is your credit history and your credit rating has been affected. During the time of this period of time, obviously you're not able to get most consumer credit. Not all of it, but most of the major ones, like buying the car or whatever. And secondly, when you come out of this period, you're going to have a transitional period when you're going to have difficulty still getting some consumer credit, because you now have to re-demonstrate to everyone in society that now you can afford to do it. In her case, she was very lucky. She got a good job, and she went to school, studied hard, went through this whole thing during the thing, graduated from there at some point in time when all this was going on, probably just before this was going on, she graduated. She started working, but she got working at a temp agency, and the problem because you're working at a temp agency, you were making decent money, but not a lot more than you would if you actually work for the employer directly, in this case the federal government. Because the temp agency didn't have any motivation to almost to take her off the temp agency because they're making money off her, and since her fellow employees at different assignments had no motivation to advise her that the government has a policy that after a certain length of time being a temp with the federal government has an option that they can exercise to what they call bridge her into the permanent public service. In other words, if they can justify the need to have this person now, they went for a temp agency because it was a temporary position to fill. We did not know whether or not there would be a permanent position to fill. But if this position was meant to become permanent, or it was intended to become permanent, and they were looking for a permanent hire, this was just an audition for that position. And then they could bridge you in and make you a permanent employee of the government, which means you get all the benefits of public service employee, and the temp agency gets nothing. Their contract is over, goodbye, sayonara. It's in the contract for the temp agency too. They are aware of this, they know this. And so do the people at the public service, because what happens is, if they don't like you, somebody in the public service that might be your boss doesn't like you, or doesn't want to favor you, doesn't want you really around, but has to take you because they need you as a temp, they might not encourage the government to do it, because once you're part of the public service, after the year of probation, you're very difficult to get rid of. You can move on from the public service and stay there for the rest of your life as long as you can, unless you do something really heinously bad and you're let go, or they ask you to retire and buy out your contract. So it's a really great place to be if you want some security. Great, and the salaries typically are about 20 or 30% more than comparable positions in the private sector, or at least have been historically as a means to attract the best talent. That was the purpose of that money. The government wanted the best talent. They knew that they had to pay. They knew the one lesson a lot of businesses don't really know. If you want the best talent around, you have to pay more for talent because it's better value. Instead of looking at it from the minimum salary, getting the least expensive employee, what you should be looking at is get the most valuable employee that you can pay a commensurate salary that you know you're going to get that value back. And that will mean ultimately a win-win for you. The place that's most notorious for not doing that is the restaurant and hospitality sector, where they look at minimizing costs to need because they think that the jobs require minimal effort and anyone can do them, therefore it doesn't really matter about value. I hate to tell you, it does. Especially in areas where you're making food, for example, preparation of products for people to consume. Those are where you need to have value. And of course, if you get better value, and if you can maximize profit at the same time, it's a win-win, not just for the employees, but for the customers too. And also then means encouraging more customers, because people do understand value. Not everybody buys things on the cheap. Many of us do actually look at things based on the value and whether they're worth it, and determine whether or not it makes justified to continue consuming this product or service based on the value. So that's the thing. I think it's a lost opportunity for many businesses. Anyway, getting back to what again, another tangent. Bear with me. I came along, and I'm a person that's got lots of ideas, lots of great inspirations of things I can do. A lot of times I do things on the shoestring because that's why I had to improvise and improvise and rebuild. I've rebuilt my life 6 times now as far as getting stuff. Like, I've demonstrated to myself clearly that stuff is not the problem. Getting stuff for me is not a problem. Inquiring of things, if you want things, not a problem. The bigger problem is requiring the things that there is some things I need that I can't get because I'm being very expensive, and therefore I have to satisfy myself by compromising my ability to get things that I can get and afford at the expense of getting things that actually what I need. to do the job I want to give the best value, be the most productive with my time, so I can be more efficient with my time, so I can get more things done. So because of the time I have to accomplish, she comes along, and I'm struggling along with all these things. I'm doing what I can, and working my butt off as much as part time as being a disabled person, as much as a lot more than most disabled people, not as some, but most. And so she comes along my life, and she has a great job, and then she's just finally got hired on the public service. She finally got a boss and said, "Hey, congratulations! We value your work so much, we want to hire you." And not only just hire you, I don't have a position at the level that you're working at. We don't have any permanent placements. I have a level for an AS or executive assistant level position, level 1, which pays more than a standard clerk does, or clerk 4, which is what the one she was at. So not only did she end up getting a permanent job where she was making more money because she was getting paid the full salary and benefits that she wasn't getting from the temp employee, and the permanence of, or the know that within a year she would be permanent, she got a raise at the same time. So it was a double great news for her and for us as a couple, as a young couple. When she met me, she was in that time where she was apexing, where she was just coming out of Dalton's, she was coming out of Lolo, she was coming out of Aspinall, so not too long after she was coming out of getting a consumer debt. She was still paying consumer proposals, almost done. She was good, about 6 months away from consumer proposals when we first met. And I didn't know this. I didn't realize. I didn't really know a lot about her. I learned this a long time. I learned this over time about her. And once we did find that out, and I found that out around time around February, and she had a consumer proposal, and she had this old beat up Fiesta car that she had bought that had she owed $10,000 worth of debt on it. That's what she had left on. The car was beaten up. It was probably 6 months or a year away from being replaced totally, and then she would have to start over again. She had 2 years to pay for it. She had paid for it for 2 years for a car that was literally not worth the 2 years. It would end up being the same thing. She'd have to finance it again, and then more negative equity, and so on and so forth and so on. So we went to a Ford dealership because I heard through the dealership, my friends, that there was a recall in the Fiesta car for the transmission, the manual transmission, manual/automatic transmission they had major recalls in the States, and many of them were being called back because they were crap. Very poor design on Ford's part. It would work sometimes. I experienced it firsthand when driving it, almost killing myself. It was amazing. It would slip from first gear to second gear in 20 seconds, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. Didn't. Thank goodness. I'm here. Anyway, so we got to tell you, said, let's go take it to Ford and see what they'll do. See if they'll give us, we'll just say, we know this car is a piece of junk. We know it's a lemon. We know Ford has to take it back at some point. For Canada, eventually going to take it back at some point. Why don't we take it back and get me something useful? So we went around and looked around, and the vehicle we found that was eventually, that we ended up choosing, was a Ford Escape. And it was not just the first Escape. We could have just got the base model and got the least amount of expensive car and trade something least warped. I said, well, I mean, do you got a trade? Do you got a demo on the lot? Now, the biggest secret that most dealers don't tell you about is the dealer demo. Every dealership has to have a demo of every vehicle to show customers, because customers, if they're going to put that much money towards something, they want to kick the tires on it. They want to kick tires, and the manufacturers know this. Manufacturers, 90% of the products have to have a dealer demo because people want to kick the tires on. They're going to have to kick, but not big. It's a major investment. You don't have to buy a major investment without trying it first, especially that. There's the word trying it, attempting to use it, getting to know it. So we took out a dealer demo, and it turns out the dealer demo in this case ends up in the end, ironically enough, being the vehicle we bought. Congratulations, we managed to snag a whale. Got in the dealership, ended up paying $1,000 more than the base model for a vehicle that was worth a lot more than that. And we were happy about that. And also we had a thing, because I was with Costco at the time, I had let my membership expire at Costco, but I renewed it because all memberships renew back to the date that you last used it. That's how they all work. That's the anniversary. So whenever the anniversary is, whatever the anniversary. So anyway, I renewed my membership for Costco. And so we were able to get the dealer that was supposed to get $2,000 in Costco cash, or get from Ford at some point in time for buying them. Well, we thought we got it inside the contract, because when you see the finance guys negotiate, I thought they automatically took it account, because we didn't have a down payment, but we had a vehicle, but the vehicle had negative equity. So all I had to do was magic to get it to work. And because it was magic, the payments were quite high. They were $300 something a month, over $300 bi-weekly, which is $600 or more per month, which is quite a bit. But we figured with the money she was making now with a new job, and the fact that we were living together, so we had shared costs, we can minimize costs, we can sort of maximize things and sort of share economies of scale. So it wasn't just me and her son living together. It was me, her son, and we had at that time 2 tenants. We were in the place a little bit more with them. We managed to make it work. For the first vehicle, we went for the whole time. 2 years went by. Over 2 years went by. We did this. I mean, we're doing pretty well. Then the pandemic comes along, And just at the very beginning of the pandemic, when the early days of the pandemic, sometime in March, or April, May of the pandemic, when early days got when some of the restrictions were just going, everyone was trying to figure out exactly what to do and how this thing was going to play out, and nobody knew how long it was going to go, and all these things go on. We were, she gets answer in pants, and she sees all the ads for vehicles. They want to sell vehicles desperately. They want to sell vehicles very desperately because the salesmen are just crying for sales. They have no money coming in because people are not coming in anymore because people are scared to come into the dealerships, and the dealerships are scared to sell people. I mean, so there's all gosh. So all of a sudden comes along an opportunity. She wants to get into a vehicle, and she wanted to get a Ford Edge. Just what she really wanted. She wanted a bigger vehicle. Escape was what she took because it was bigger than a Fiesta, bigger than a red box, but smaller than a house. That's the best way to explain it. So she wanted this bigger vehicle. But the problem is, we originally wanted to trade the Escape for the bigger vehicle. Well, the only thing is the dealership didn't want to trade. They didn't want to have to take this vehicle back with its already built in negative equity and build more negative equity on top of another vehicle, make even bigger payments. But what happened was, ironically enough, the payments were much less if we just bought it outright and refinanced it, if she could find someone to finance it with. Or so the bank could finance it. So I eventually found a bank to finance it. It was a bank we're currently doing business right now with. They are now becoming good. Now are probably going to become the bank that gets sent, like 9% of the time, will probably send our mortgage for our home. Why? Because they seem to be believing in us. Why? It started off, got the car loan. Then we moved over to Bank of Montreal officially. That's the bank, Bank of Montreal. I will say the bank out because I think they deserve to be mentioned about this. We went into them, talked to them, said, can we get a consolidation loan, a credit, something like that, for the debts when we get, like everyone, got credit card debt. Well, at the time we had to survive, so we got various credit cards over time. As she rebuilt her credit, she was able to get credit cards, small amounts, and they built over time as they offered you more and more. Because once a credit card gives you money and sees that you're paying a regular basis, they want to keep you in debt. So they keep offering you more. And of course, we fell for the trap like a lot of other people. So I went to the bank around that time and said, no, we can't do it because you're way too high in your utilization ratios and so forth and so on. So we don't tend to lend people money when they've got a lot of money they owe. Which is kind of funny because that's ironically when you need it. You want to get rid of the credit cards by transferring to low interest debt, but they won't do it unless you don't need the cards. Or you don't need them as much, is what you don't need the line of credit as much. You're less at risk because they have a history that you know you're paying back your debts, and the likelihood is that lower interest debt requires a lot of risk, high risk for the bank in the sense of paying back, but they want a low risk client to do it. So anyway, we go along, we don't get this. So we're still floating credit cards, and then what happens this year, which is a really crazy thing. This is the craziest thing. She finally gets offered about 4 or 5 months ago, or 6 months ago, or a year ago, sorry, a Bank of Montreal credit card because we started moving over there. One reason we moved over there is as a military member of the military because she worked for defense. She was eligible for Bank of Montreal for free of charge. A perfect thing that any military person should take advantage of it. Military families or people that work for the military should definitely take advantage of that. In an age where everything seems to be costing money, anytime you can get something for nothing or less than nothing or lower rate, it's definitely an opportunity to take advantage of. And if the people who don't take advantage of those things or members of people that have these opportunities go suck at egg. The fact is, in life, if there was their position, if they were in the same position as you, they would definitely take advantage of the same offer. Definitely would. Anyway, so we got this offer for the Bank of Montreal, and I got a bank account there, and CC, her son's got a bank account there. It's great. So now we've cut down a lot of our costs, and are slowly but sure moving our banking from fee banking, based banking, to no fee banking, because every dollar counts. Every dollar counts. So anyway, she bought the vehicle, moved over the banking over, but also it was after she got the financing for the vehicle. Bank of Montreal came through and said, we will finance this vehicle. The dealership piled a bunch of things onto it to get the sale and wiggled their collective creativity to get the thing to go through, even though the payment was quite large. It was $400 every 2 weeks. We figured, well, maybe we can figure out some way of doing it. We managed to jiggle things along and managed to be able to solve this long. And of course, despite a number of crises with our son, CC losing, going in and out of work, where we had to take him, bring him back in. So when he was no longer an income source, he was an income liability. We had to support him during those transition times when things were tough. And that went through that. And we took tough times. We almost got close. Did get some more consumer debt but recently, some good news in the horizon. We get an offer from the same bank, the Bank of Montreal. Great people, the Bank of Montreal, excellent service. I have no problem with using them. A line of credit, $5,000 line of credit, and that's great. And the first thing I told her to do is take $4,000 of that line of credit and transfer the credit card onto it. Why? 21% credit card interest with revolving credit, as opposed to $4,000 of debt moved to a bank of credit for 12.9%. You do the math. It's a lot quicker to pay off a 21% no, 12%, 0.9% debt compounded monthly, and a 21% one, which is almost double that. So our policy is to move it over, and as they extend more lines of credit to us, we'll move more debt until the thing is paid off. That once we establish we have this line of credit, and it means we're credible, and we reduce our credit card debt with the next 2 years, that's the goal, then we'll be able to go back to the bank and say, listen here, we got a little bit of savings, you've got this line of credit you've already established with us, we don't really want more of the line of credit, we want you to give us a mortgage for land. And that's the transition. So what we're discussing now about is obviously we still got these two vehicles, one's costing $300 per bike, and one's $400 bi-weekly, which means that means a little money we can put towards the savings. So this is definitely a discussion that we're really, really seriously looking at. Her and her side, get rid of the vehicle entirely. We've now got the vehicle to a point where the negative equity is gone and the vehicle value is more than the current outstanding value, which is something that most of us don't ever have. Most of us, by the time we pick the vehicle out, it's worth nothing. And there's no equity at all, and then we trade it in, and they get said, well, we can't give you anything. We have to start the whole process over. We've actually got a position where the vehicle is 5 years old, going on 7, and it still has, because we took care of it very well. That's another thing. Take care of your vehicles. In spite of other things, spending a little bit of money on routine maintenance and taking care of your vehicles definitely pays off in the end. Anything that's well taken care of and well maintained will tend to last longer than something that's not. I wish my dad would learn that lesson, especially with my vehicle. When I was taking care of it, it was great. When he stopped taking care of it, that's when everything went to shit. Every single time. So take care of vehicles, take care of things, maintain things, maintenance of anything, including your body. Maintenance of yourself is just as important as maintenance of anything else. Maintenance. You want to keep something last longer and take care of it properly. If you take care of it properly, the odds of it breaking down are a lot less than when it breaks down, it's not as severe. That applies to your human body, applies to your car, applies to everything else in life. Anyway, so our discussion right now is to look at this escape. We can turn around and sell it and get more value, pay off the loans and be out of it, and then we have that extra $300 value we can put towards savings. Or I was looking at an alternative. The alternative is, since the vehicle actually was financed at such a high rate for 7 years because of negative equity, and since we managed to maintain such value of the vehicle, the alternative I thought would be that one of us takes over her son, who just lost a vehicle recently because of financing, because he had some bad debts. Because he got in a bad situation where he couldn't afford to pay anymore. He couldn't afford to pay his debts, therefore he couldn't acquire any more financing. So he couldn't afford to pay his existing financing, so therefore he didn't have the ability to go buy something again. And of course then lost it, went to default and lost the vehicle. Now he has to pay some money because unfortunately the asset was sold with costs that less than what it was worth on value in loans. The bank got their money for the loans, but they want the rest of the value paid back in installments, which he is attempting to do. So he's got that sort of negative back, plus he's got a negative, about 5 or plus more credit card, and a payday. So right now he's got about $4,000 or $5,000 worth of negative debt hanging around his shoulder that he needs to deal with at some point in time, in some way. And that means getting a job and get some stability, and then maybe he can figure out a way of restructuring his debt and working on something. Well, the idea was, within the next 4 to 6 months from now, or maybe sooner depending what happens, whether one of us takes it over. Maybe he might not be the best one to take it over because his consumer debt is obviously not in a good position. But what if I was to take it over, since now what's happened is since negative equity is gone, the vehicle's worth more than the loan is outstanding. So if the bank did seize it back, they could literally get back more than what they paid over the loan to. The money could get more back than what they paid for it to get some sort of financing. We keep the asset, and I could take a payment over a longer period of time for less money. So even if we still were paying the payment directly, we reduce the amount we would pay for it over a longer period of time, of course. We still could dispose of the asset at any point in time we want to, and dispose of the asset and require back, pay off the original and still have money left over, and still get the use of the asset. But we'd gain back some money towards investment and savings. So that's the sort of pinnacle, sort of fork of the road that we're at. Do we dispose of the asset right now, get rid of it, pull it off the books, do without it for a period of time until we determine we need it again, or need something to replace it again, not necessarily that, but something else to replace again, or do we turn around and try to refinance it some other way to keep? So that's the argument, and I think that's she's in the camp to get rid of it. She likes to save the money. If you want to keep the currency, if you want to keep saving money, you want to save money. If we don't need it, we don't need it. We don't need it. Get rid of it. If we get rid of it, we don't need it. So she ends up getting away, not because I'm capitulating to her, but the logic's there. And the fact is that we were looking at buying another vehicle anyway, and since this vehicle will no longer have negative equity, if we get a vehicle even with the same payment and get a better value vehicle over time, that might be a better play in the long run than continue to finance a vehicle, even if it's in good shape and it's well loved, a vehicle that does not service, is not as necessary, which sits around most of the times, and it doesn't actually do anything for us until we need it again. And then once we need it again, we can decide that if we need it again, we can decide what to do. Either trade the existing vehicle and get a new vehicle if we just get a one vehicle family within 2 years' time. When it gets close to the payment, gets close to the 5-year anniversary of the other vehicle's anniversary, where it's the time when we need to start thinking about that. I'll get it right because it might be time to get a new vehicle anyway because we want to invest. Or do we keep this one and let it pay itself out over a longer period of time, and then defer the decision to buy a second vehicle or replace the vehicle at some point in time, or to get rid of that vehicle at some later date? So that's the discussion we're having right now. It's something that a lot of us have in families or discussions, these things, that we both have different points of view about it. I'm starting to think, even though I was thinking about the argument keep the vehicle, I'm starting to now convince myself that maybe that argument might not be great, because what I could do maybe instead of, if I want to reduce value and get back another vehicle, I got two ways to do it. I can either just sell that vehicle, and instead of finance that vehicle, finance a completely different vehicle. Finance a different vehicle that's more suitable to my needs, maybe, that's going to be less gas hungry or more purpose built, that either has the same or less cost than current paying now. So that ends up happening is then we end up in a situation where if we get some money back from this vehicle, we can pay down some of our finance debt. We can then turn around and purchase a new or used vehicle that maybe costs less per month than we're paying now. So we can do both tests, plus have a little money in our pockets, plus get a vehicle that might be more purpose built for what we need. So maybe this discussion here was one the inputs I need to sort of retool this whole process to make more sense of it, because the fact is, sometimes we don't want to look at all the angles of it because we just don't see the same things from different points of view and attempt to analyze it. So maybe like everywhere else, I just did a process of basically negotiating myself out of a car payment. Sounds like the 95% chance is I can still investigate my other option. It may be interesting to look at as a side deal, sort of an experiment. So I had to experiment if I was to buy this car from her and take it off her books and put it on mine, how much would I end up paying for it if I did do that, possibly. How could I afford it, and which if I financed it for the value of the vehicle and then made it for a longer term, so I could get some money in our pocket, so we could actually have some cash, so we can actually, it actually would be like a loan, getting the same effect if we sell it to somebody else, but then we still have to loan on the books. We still would have to pay so the same amount or maybe slightly less than what we're paying now. Or if I just finance the value of the vehicle and then not get any money up front, clear the loan, but just transfer the financing from one person to another over a longer period of time to reduce the payments over time. But you know what? I'm thinking that maybe, as much as I love this vehicle, as much as it was a great little vehicle to have, I think its time has come to be passed down the road. And then I could then freeze this up the option at some later time in the future, maybe even right away afterwards if the opportunity presents itself, purchase the vehicle we really wanted in the first place. And as long as it doesn't cost us any more per month than it costs the current vehicle, we're not more underwater than we were. And we get all the benefits of a new vehicle, we get the warranty support that we don't have, and that also reduces cost because the cost of maintenance is lower. Even though the insurance might be slightly higher, our insurance is relatively low because we have no accident policy, we have 0 accidents, we have a really good insurance company right now that's done very well by us, except with the exception of our son because he had lapsed on his insurance, personal insurance that he bought, and the insurance company's now risk averse about that because of other circumstances that weren't totally his fault. That because of some things that happened, that and one thing he did happen that was his fault, they caused him to be a little risk averse in terms of reinsuring it under our umbrella or even for the same company by that, which he had to move to another company briefly when he did have still the car. But that'll sort of clear itself up over time. Maybe over the next 6 months that'll clear itself up, and around the time that we get this car, maybe that'll happen. Other vehicles happen, and then it'll be a circumstance that'll be perfect for him. It'd be like the perfect weathering the storm that he'd be able to reinsure on our vehicles again. We'll have more than one vehicle again. We'll have a vehicle that'll be purpose built to what we wanted in the first place. We'll have saved a little bit of money in the meantime until we make this decision, and or if we're going to make the decision early and repurchase another vehicle to replace the existing one, we're not going to have 3 finances. We'd only have 2. Now, or the third option, we could take it back to the dealership and see if we can take it directly instead of doing the hassle of selling this vehicle ourselves. We could take it back to the dealership and see whether or not they'll give us something worthwhile for it. They'll give us more than what the value is, so the loans could also have 0 equity instead of negative equity. We might not get as much money up front because obviously dealerships want to make money. They want to do their business to make money to sell cars, not to sell cars as a liability. And if they do take it on and try to first get what we want and keep the payments either the same or lower than we got, well, at least we're not any worse off, except the fact instead of being 2 years, or in this case 20 months, in debt for this particular obligation, we'll now be 74 months. or 84 months, which is 7 years. So we trade less than 2 years for another 5 years of indebtedness, which pushes the thing down the road a little further. So these are all the options we're looking at. We don't have to necessarily pick one over the other. But it's good to have options. It's good to know, like I said to her, it's good to know all your opportunities and what the pluses and minuses are, so you can weigh out which is the best option for you. And this is something all people should do. Instead of making decisions impulsively, and don't discourage someone that comes up with a different option like she did. She discouraged me because she has her one mindset, the one option that she had in there, and she's dead set on it because she figures she's going to solve the problem because it's simplistic. Don't always take the simplistic option just because it's the best option that you think exists. Always investigate all your options first, because the compromise and there's trade-offs, pluses and minuses for any sort of adventure. Like if we get rid of this vehicle entirely, and all of a sudden need a second vehicle, oops, we have to rent one. Well, that might not be too bad depending on the purpose. If it's like for a moving job, for example, we'll just rent a truck. The vehicle we can rent a purpose-built truck for that particular purpose and pay the one-time fee for it, and pay that sort of paying cost right up the front for the period of time we need it, and we take it back to them when we're no longer needing more, and therefore the purpose is done. Even like my business, I could rent a car if I wanted to do something over the day. Let's say if I wanted to rent a car for 2 days, for the 2 days that she did work, as opposed to have one. Well, that might actually be able to be cheaper than keeping one there all the time. It may be pick it up the night before, and then have it for that 1 day or 2 that we need it, and then take it back. So that might be another option too to consider, a necessary temporary. And this way I can get a vehicle that's more purpose-built, that's probably more reliable than I got, and I also don't have to worry the liability of keeping it over time, because we just carry it on. We can carry it on existing. We didn't carry it. We get their insurance, of course, obviously, because it's a second vehicle, and of course we only have it for the period of time we need, as opposed to keeping something around on the just in case need of needing it when we want it. So convenience will not be there, obviously. We lose a bit of convenience factor, but we reduce a lot of costs. So there's lots of factors. Anyway, this is sort of a side episode, sort of a little bit of a slice of my life. The whole purpose of my Loonies work was I'm giving you my 2 cents worth of anything, and this is my personal life experience. So the thing is, it might not always relate to all you out there. Maybe this point in time in life, wherever point in time in life are, but the circumstances, a lot of the instances and situations can be relatable to most people in terms of what they're going through in their own lives, and their transitions and situations they're thinking about in terms of their own personal and professional and their own health lifestyle. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. This is my tunes. I will put this up this week, and then I will probably start next week putting up the series that I promised, with the one about having to go about talking about the economy, talking about history of finance, talking about history of capital, talking about history of the world in terms of how we got to this place here, why we got here, what problems we have, and maybe some possible solutions that we can maybe sort of round around our own personal way of taking responsibility for our own part of the thing. And if we all started, including the politicians, take personal responsibility for things we can change, as opposed to the things that we think we should change, or are being told to change, that other people are not willing to change, we can end this hypocrisy in the first place, maybe make some progress in the world. Anyway, like I say, of course, info@intimemedia.ca. If you have any questions or comments, leave a comment on the video. I will attempt to go through the videos and check out for these comments. I haven't seen comments yet. For a while, I have to be maybe more vigilant about this. I haven't done my due diligence as much as I should have when it comes to comments and videos. I may need to go into it more and get more involved in this and start becoming more proactive and become a better host. Not just for the people that are on the cast now, but any future viewers that may consider. So like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends about it. If you don't like it, tell me at info.intimemedia.ca. I'm Mike. This is another episode of My Tuesdays Learning Sport. Hopefully posted this Friday, the 30th of June. I'm going to turn the timeline to put it up because today is Tuesday or Wednesday. No, today's Tuesday. I got a couple more days to do it, but I might put it up early. So if it does go up early, great. If it doesn't, I'm going to attempt to put it up for Friday. Then we'll start putting up the first episode as soon as I can do some editing and checking it over and figure out where I was in my timeline of thoughts so I can make the next episode. Anyway, this is Mike. My Tuesdays, intimemedia.ca is our website, or itmcg.ca is the new link for those that love short links, and of course info@intimemedia.ca if you want to leave a question or comment. And you can look at our Facebook page at My Tuesdays Worth or Intime Media Group pages, and check it out, and check out our website. Hoping to put more stuff in ahead to get the start. Hoping to start a couple new initiatives. One, for example, a thing I came up just recently because I looked at the world, a way for me to do my contribution part. I'll start a little part of my store which would be called Second Chance. And what Second Chance basically is, folks, if you're not aware with recycling, the value of religion, and all that, most people are, is that instead of just putting things back into sale again, bringing more value by fixing them up, cleaning them up, make them presentable, make them life work. Instead of just throwing them out there and say, here, you do it yourself. If you think it's worth something, you do it. I want to put things out there, and I put in value to it by taking care and fixing them in a way that makes them valuable again for people. And by adding that value, it encourages more people to do the same and keep things around much longer, and repair and fix and reuse. The 3 R's should be, here's most people don't know is repair, repair, reuse, repurpose. And those are the 3 R's. If more of us to follow those 3 R's, instead of buying that brand new Samsung phone or whatever phone every time, pass it down to the next person. If you're not going to get a new one, pass it down to someone that needs it. Someone else that needs it. Or find some way of repurposing, giving it some value. Because ultimately, the reason why we have so much junk in this world is because we make so many things where we don't repurpose them. We don't reuse them. We just replace, repeat, replace, repeat, and goes in the landfill. And one day, someday, 1,000 years from now, some archaeologists, some dumpsters will be in there cleaning up all our trash. But until that happens, instead of making more trash, we need to be more mindful of the trash we make. And more mindful of how things get used and how they end, and what happens to them after we've expelled or found no longer purposeful. Anyway, and that's it for this week. I'm sorry to go on like this, but these are causes that are very important to me, along with the Cousins Karaoke that I'm hoping launching will also be on the website. I got a lot of work to do, and once I get that work done, I'll be more than happy to announce some big announcements about all these things, and you can check them out yourself, and hopefully we can have some business again, and maybe I'll see you I might see you in person sometime. Anyway, like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Mike. This is Mike 2 Loonies worth for another week. Take it easy, folks. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.